Hello there, Chris Pitzer here of Wedding Industry Wisdom, coming to you live, hopefully soon to be joined by the baby-faced Jack Brister. I'm trying to think of a new introduction to him each time I do one of these. So, how are we all doing? I am rather under the weather, so do not adjust your television sets. This is just actually what I look like today. And Jack's watching, so I just waved at him. He's also asked to join the recording, which is always a
Good start. Hello.
You're right?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not even sure I'm alive, but you know.
How was your bank holiday weekend?
Um, it was I had a big wedding on Saturday, and then I had my youngest daughter's birthday party on Sunday, which I spent putting together flat pack furniture, which is a really, really bad idea when you got a slip disc.
Yeah, I probably could have told you that one, to be fair.
Yeah. If anyone was wondering, don't do that because I'm basically dead today. So,
Who thought it was a good idea to do that though?
it was my idea,
So
but
you've only really got yourself to blame.
it wasn't because I thought it was a good idea. It was because my stream of consciousness on it was, why is it okay for me to ruin my back for performing at other people's weddings, but it's not okay for me to ruin my back doing something nice for my daughter? My back's going to hurt anyway. I might as well do something useful.
Right, okay.
That's not to say I don't regret doing it because it's horrendous.
Fair enough.
There you go.
Uh, good. Right, should we get on with this?
Yeah, let's get on with it and see what happens. And I can't find my headphones, so I found need some other headphones and they're not working. So um, we're just gonna see what the audio quality comes out like.
You've got to edit it, so
Well, if I move away and put the recording volume up, I don't know. It's my problem to deal with.
it is. I don't have to deal with it, so I'm happy about that.
Okay.
Right, you ready?
Actually, no. I need to do the opposite in a second.
Okay.
Right.
Smooth and professional, like always.
Yeah, because no one's watching. No one watches these back. It's fine. So I need to have the microphone closer and put the recording volume right down. That's the plan.
Cool.
Smooth operator. Um. Right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Good. Right. I don't need to be wearing these headphones because they're not doing anything. Um. Cool. Um. Hello there, Chris Piercy of Wedding Industry Wisdom, and joined as always by Mr. Jack Brister. Say hello, Jack.
Hello.
Do you know why I get you to do that?
Because you're hoping that I'm going to go and say hello, Jack, again.
No. It's so that when I edit it, I can look for the moment you say hello, and just that's how I align our audio
Genius.
together, which makes it really
Almost
annoying.
like you know what you're doing.
And, um, but there we go. So Luke Clough is watching. Hello, Luke. How are you doing?
Hi, Luke.
So I thought, I'm not sure how many of you have been following the chatter on the group, but lots of chatter on the group, which is always good this weekend. Have you been following much of that, or have you been busy?
I have in between working, I've managed to catch bits of it. So yeah, it seems like lots of people are talking about budget weddings.
Yes, they are. I mean, I think this has come about because I mentioned that the fireworks alone was 10 grand for the wedding I had on Saturday. It
Mm.
was a pretty high budget wedding. And then, I think it's going to spark from then, and lots of new posts began. But then people are saying, well, you know, is is it okay to just to not reply to emails if you get one from someone who obviously can't afford you? I mean, do you respond Do you respond to every email that you get, regardless, even if you know that they can't afford you, or
Yes, because it's still my reputation,
yeah,
regardless of whether they can afford me or not, does not negate the fact that my reputation is on the line. So if I don't respond to an inquiry because I think they can't afford me, it ultimately backfires because those people might know people who can afford me, and they'll say, "Oh, we're planning an event, thinking of having Jack come and do some magic," and then that person who I didn't respond to might go, "Oh no, you don't want to book him." I sent an inquiry to him, and he never ended up booking me.
yeah, yeah. I see what I mean. I hadn't considered it from that point of view exactly, but yeah, that does make a lot of sense. I mean, there was someone who started the thread saying that they just bought. Why don't you cater for everyone? But I don't think you can cater for everyone. With I mean, if you're, and my response, which you said made a lot of sense. My response to this was that if you're a wedding supplier who is basically exchanging your time for money, so someone who's there on the day or a cake maker or something, basically it's anyone who's not hiring out stuff more or less, then if you take on a budget wedding when you can charge a lot more, you're basically just taking money directly out of your own pocket.
Yeah,
Because if you take a £300 wedding and then you have to turn down a £1,200 wedding or whatever, then that's literally 900 quid you just thrown away.
yeah,
So I do think you've got to know what your packages are, know what your prices are. I mean, we both agree that you should have an ideal client in mind, and that's who you should be approaching, or marketing to, advertising to. And then people can either afford you or they can't. I mean, you can have cheaper packages, but that it shouldn't be at a point where you're like losing out, basically.
yeah, definitely. And as you said, I think this applies to pretty much anyone who exchanges their time for money. As you said, if you're hiring out equipment, then you can kind of have equipment that tailors to different clientele a little bit easier because you can have um, smaller bits and pieces that you can rent out to smaller weddings, and of course you've got the big like love letters and Mr. and Mrs. letters, those kind of things, and dance floors. You can have bigger equipment for bigger weddings. So I feel like in that instance, maybe you can service more than one client, and that's where having an ideal client for each individual product or service that you offer is quite important. And I think what we do, a fundamental part of wedding industry wisdom is knowing who your ideal client is, so you can service them in the best way possible. So if you've got products that, some that are £5 a pop and others that are £500 a pop, obviously they're going to be very different clientele that you're going to be targeting. So you need to make sure that you know who the people that buy the five or hire out the £5 items as opposed to the people that hire out the £500 items, so you know where that sits, so you can target those items appropriately to the right people. But if you're in an industry or you're in this part of the industry where you are either at a wedding or you're not, so if you're a magician or an entertainer or a photographer, you can only be at one wedding at one time. Um, so you have to make sure that you are charging a price consistently across the board so that you are not missing out on money, as you said, because if you're the example you used, essentially you missed out on £900 potentially there.
Yeah.
So you've got to make sure that you're comfortable with the prices that you're charging for your clientele, so that you're not kind of um, just trying to get the. If you're just trying to get the gigs in or trying to get the weddings in, it comes across that way. I think if you're doing some weddings for £300 and other ones for 1200, you will be able to tell the difference. Not just you, but in your marketing, because it's going to come across as scattergun. You're going to have some pictures of you at a village hall wedding, perhaps, and then some at a big country stately manor or castle or something like that. And it's going to come across in your marketing, and then no one's going to know who you're targeting, what you do it, how you work, all of those things, because obviously those packages are all different, and no one knows what they're doing, so then no one's going to book you.
Yeah, and I don't think that I don't think that's got any longevity to it at all. Because I think that I mean, you can have this scattergun approach to marketing, but it leaves a lot of guesswork. I don't think you ever really know what's going to work. And like I said, it doesn't have any longevity to it. So you don't know, you know, you need to be thinking 2 years down the line what you're going to be doing. Are you still going to be doing this kind of very hard work scattergun approach? I mean, I want to work less and less and less on the back end, so I have more time for me. I don't want to
Yeah.
be, because the scattergun approach, I mean, absolutely, it it takes time. There's no way, there's no two ways about it. It just takes up a lot of time. Whereas a well thought out marketing strategy, once it's implemented, normally it can be kind of left to run to a certain extent. I mean, it has to be checked in on, and things have to be tweaked here and there. But essentially, it should more or less take care of itself, ish.
Yeah, of course. No, I understand exactly what you're saying there, and I appreciate that when you're starting out, or even when you hit a tough spot in your business, because we all do, we come across those times where the gigs aren't coming in, the weddings aren't coming in, or just you're struggling for cash a bit. It can seem appealing to when someone says, "Oh, I'll give you 300 quid, or I'll give you 100 quid, or I'll give you this, or I'll give you that." If you come along and do it, it can sound appealing, but ultimately it's going to harm your brand long term. So if you can hold out from taking those gigs, even if you are starting to feel the pinch a little bit, because we appreciate, obviously, most of us in this industry are sole traders. Most of us, use this money to keep our lives going. So appreciate that at times you may
Yeah,
need to do that. But hopefully, if you can hold out as much as you can, you are going to appreciate it in the long run, because your brand and your business is going to sort of grow quicker and easier and better because of it. Because you're going to know in those times of adversity are the times when you grow the most. So if you can kind of just be very firm in what you know about your business and how you work, then even in those times of adversity, you're going to come out stronger as a business. You're going to know how your business works better. So don't be tempted just because your business you might be having a tough month or two.
yeah. So I think that the times when I have these kind of dips, and I think you kind of naturally do, it's it's nothing. The, because of the nature of the wedding industry, it's the stuff that you did wrong 6 to 9 months ago that means that your diary is lean at that current time or whatever. It's not what you're doing right then, because not many of us get bookings for the following month. No, it's
No.
normally a, a lot further in advance than that. I mean, I've in the wedding industry, I mean, I had been booked 2 days in advance for a wedding. Um, Once, someone just kind of last minute said, "Do you want to do this?" And admittedly, I did do it a bit cheaper, but it was on a Tuesday afternoon. Um, it's like,
Sure.
do I want to go and earn a few £100s, or do I want to sit at home? And it worked for me. But that was less of a, oh, it's a lean time, and more of a, yeah, I'll take a like nice little Brucey bonus.
Yeah.
But yeah, it depends on the situation you're in. But yeah, taking those cheaper gigs will damage your business long term, because if you do it for that price, then you'll be then people when people say, "Oh, how much did they do it for?" If you do a great job, which that will, they'll say, "Oh yeah, they did it for this much for me." So I think if you ever do it cheap, then make sure on your invoice it says discounted rate, or it's
Yes,
clear
definitely.
that this is a you got my £500 package and I gave you a £200 discount, and you don't even need to say why. You just need, and if anyone says that no, that's a £500 and I gave them £200 off because it was next Thursday and I wasn't busy, or I was in the area, or whatever it might be. But if you put something on the invoice so people know that that is not the rate that you charge, that was a special discounted rate that they got, um, then that can help with that a little bit. But they might still be like, oh, but they paid that much, I want to pay that much.
Yeah. And I want to make this very, very clear now, just because it literally just came to me. There is also nothing wrong with charging little money for
No,
what you do. We are not belittling the people that the kind of the backbone and just kind of go out for little money and do lots of gigs and lots of weddings and lots of work. We're not belittling those people at all because obviously different people target different clientele and different clientele pay different prices. So some people will not charge a lot of money, but they will get a lot of work in. So, you know, if you can do 100 gigs at £200 in a year, or you can do 10 gigs at £2,000. It creates the same amount of money, and it's your choice as to which one of those people you want to be.
You're
Obviously, there are
struggling.
huge variations within that. Sorry?
You were struggling with the maths a little bit there, weren't you?
Yeah, that was a really tough one. Um, so, yeah, you need to decide which one of those people you want to be. Some people want to be busy and want to be out working a lot and want to do the 100 gigs a year to make 20 grand at £200, whereas other people don't want to be like that. And Chris and I are both in the camp of work less for more money, so that's sometimes why it might sound like we are hating on people that charge less
I
money,
don't
but
think
ultimately
everyone's
we're
like
not.
me, but I think that I, I think that there is a lot of people who listen to these lives, who listen to the podcast, who get frustrated about the fact that they are going out for kind of a mid-range amount and then they're being undercut by people. And
Yeah,
normally, and if anyone's undercutting them, literally undercutting, like finding out the prices and then going underneath you, the chances are they're not a very good business. And I think there is a kind of frustration with that. But I do think that it's really important, no matter whether you're at the lower, the mid, the top, the ultra high net worth, no matter where you're at, I think it's really important to decide on your pricing and stick to it. I think that in the initial stages, you need to tweak things and play around with prices. So, and to find out what your sweet spot is, because
yeah,
you know I've been booked for stupid amounts of money before, but it was not at a sustainable level. I got the conversion rate bottomed out, so that I had a few gigs at this really high level, or high level for me, but there was not enough conversions coming through. And then there was another time when the prices were too low, and I was getting so many bookings that I was making money, but I was also burning myself out because I was having to do so much work. So I had to then kind of put the price up so that it was that sweet spot in the middle where you're getting the right amount of work in and the right amount of money in for whatever your situation happens to be. Now, for some people that's 20 grand, for some people that's 40 grand, 60 grand, 80 grand, whatever it might be. And there's no right or wrong. It's about what your business needs to be doing for you, depending on what situation you're in.
yeah. I think you made a really good point there, certainly for people that are starting out and are starting to work out what their pricing is. Right? You're really happy you made a point that was quite good.
I'm in so much pain that I'm glad that I'm upright at the moment. So
So yeah, you've got to be when you're starting out and you're setting your prices and you're working out what you want to do. Ultimately, and we talk about this in the free course and the paid version of the course for how to run a successful wedding business, is there is a certain amount of trial and error when setting your prices because you don't know what the people will pay. You need to work out a price that you're comfortable with that fits in with your branding and your ideal client and all of those things that we talk about so that you're happy with that price, that you can go out and confidently say, this is my price. What do you think about that, essentially?
mm.
And then very quickly you'll find out whether you're in the right ballpark, you're miles off, or where it is. And then from that point, you know whether you need to change your pricing, change your ideal client, or what needs to change in order to get either the people you want, the gigs you want, or the price you want. You've got
Solid.
nothing to add. Thanks.
That's I know is a very very solid point. The one thing I'd add is that once you, I mean that there's so many variables within business that it is kind of very tricky that you may actually have the exact right price, but you're not getting the bookings. But that may be nothing to do with the price. It may be a lot more to do with your ability to sell and close people, which is like one is probably the biggest skill and takeaway that people need to have from what we do as within wedding industry wisdom is I was lucky. I don't know where it came from. I don't know like what, where, why, or when I had this epiphany exactly. But only a couple of years into my business, I think, I realized that I wasn't a magician. I was someone who sold magical services, to put it kind of in a really strange way. But it's the amount of time I spend performing compared to the amount of time I spend on the back end of my business with the marketing and advertising and all the other bits that go on with it is, you know, 5 to 1, 6 to 1, something like that. So probably even more than that with I'm a bit of a workaholic. But yeah, I do way more work on the back end of the business than the front end of the business. So once the if you're already good at making a cake or doing the makeup or whatever else, then there's probably little more you can do than just kind of tweak things and try out a couple of new ideas here and there. That's and then go out and do the work. The rest of it is working on the back end of the business, and that means honing all of these skills. But I think above everything else, of all the skills, the selling and the closing is the biggest thing. I mean, I don't think when people do a wedding fair, they realize that they're actually a salesperson on that
Yeah.
day, not a cake maker. They are not a makeup artist. They are not a photographer or a videographer. They are a salesperson. Like it's got some sort of horrible brushstroke over it with tar that says, "Oh, salespeople are horrible," but it's just you are a salesperson whenever you go to a wedding fair. Because if you're not, then what are you?
Yeah, and I think that that stigma of sales and people being bad needs to kind of be broken because they're not. And I talk about this in the free and the paid version of the course, How to Run a Successful Wedding Business. And it is
Like
the sorry,
two shameless plugs in 5 minutes.
too shame that I know I am a terrible person. Yeah, we talk about it in the sense that ultimately you're selling every day. Everything you do to some extent or another is a sale. So when you met your partner for the first time and you had to convince them to go out on a date with you, that was a sale because you were selling them on you. When you decided what film you were going to watch, you had to sell that film to somebody. Whenever you decide on your food you're going to eat, you essentially have to sell in obviously varying levels. But yeah, you
Yeah,
are selling all day, every day, and it's just convincing people of an idea. And so when you kind of get your head around that, I think there's a massive mindset shift for actually doing the sales because sales isn't about being the sleazy salesman. It's about showing someone an idea and showing them how that idea works in their wedding. In this, for wedding industry wisdom, is how that idea actually fits into their wedding day. That's all
yeah,
you're really doing when it comes to sales.
yeah. And I think that the most important thing to realize in terms of getting rid of this kind of dirty idea of sales is that and this is one of the reasons I think it's so important to have packages as well, is that when you go through the information gathering stage of your inquiry process, whatever that might be. I mean, for me, part of it is when they're filling in a booking form, and then the majority of it then comes in the follow-up phone call that they book with me, and we have this conversation, and that's where I'm gathering all this useful information about their wedding. Now, once that information has been gathered, I am going to have a very clear idea which of my packages is going to be the best one for them. Now, it may be that two of them are suitable, but I will always like, even if the one that's like £500 more is um, is £500 more, so I'd rather have that one because that's going to make me an extra 400 and something quid in terms of like profit. But I will always say to them that this is the one that you should go for because I think this is right for you. However, if you wanted to push a boat out, then this package will do this and this as well. However, this would be the one I recommend. Now, in some ways, you might think, well, hang on a minute, Chris, you're just taking money out of your own pocket. But I think people really appreciate it when you can turn around and say, look, this one would earn me more money, but this is actually the one that's right for you because it this feels really genuine and really honest, and that's what you should be trying to get across within your sales. So, if I was just saying, "Oh yeah, go for the top package because it gets me more money," I'm not going to say this, but you know, go for this package.
You recommend to everyone to book the top package. You
Yeah,
don't actually listen to what they're saying. You just go, "Oh, I think the top package would be best for you."
yeah, I think this one with all of the upsells and everything else would be the very best thing for you, even though you're getting married in a village hall and you have 35 guests. You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
no. So you should, yeah. I think mentally, and this only really works if you've got packages. Mentally, you should be thinking, set, good, ethical, honest selling is about connecting the perfect client with the perfect package which you offer. In which case, where's the negativity in that? You're selling the right thing to the right person for the right reason at the right price. You're not trying to sell them too much. You're not trying to undersell them. You're selling them exactly what they need. If you're selling someone
Yeah.
exactly what they need, how can that in any way be a bad thing?
Well, yeah, I agree. And so I think that's kind of gone about that in a nice roundabout kind of way. We've answered the question that's been going on in the group this week about working at budget weddings. As we've said, kind of halfway through there, if you are working the budget wedding industry, then that is absolutely perfect because people still need, because otherwise, the people who are having cheaper weddings or budget weddings will not have anything at their weddings. Because if we're all going higher price, then they won't be able to afford anything, which I feel is unfair just because they're not prepared to spend as much as other people are on their weddings. So people definitely need to be servicing those markets. So if you are doing that, then good on you for sure. Um, I kind of want to move us on to a point that came up earlier this morning or this afternoon, I think it was, from a member of the group called Jason, who was talking about contracts and terms and conditions and what people should be putting in their terms and conditions more specifically. So I was wondering if you had, I know you'd put some comments on there, as had I, for the group, but I wanted to see if you wanted to say anything about it on the podcast here.
Yeah, I mean, basically, yeah, the question was, what are the kind of must-haves within your terms and conditions?
Yeah.
And then it kind of went off at a slight tangent about whether terms and conditions and contracts are the same thing. They're not. Um, I think that I I think that yeah, you've got to have contracts and they've got to be signed. Whether this is electronically signed, like that's what I have, and that's got done through my CRM system, or whether you're happy posting something out for someone to sign and send back to you, or whether you meet in person and they sign it. But if you haven't got a signed contract with someone, then essentially they can turn around and then cancel their booking with you, and you'd have very little ground to stand on. And it also um, it's not just security for you; it's security for them as well. Because um, someone made the point. I think was it Christian Fletcher. I think made
Christopher, maybe? I'm not entirely
okay,
sure.
it was
Let's have a look.
someone made the point that if you have wedding insurance, then unless there's a signed contract in place, then they won't cover it. So it's all very
Yeah,
well.
that's Christian.
Yeah, it was Christian. Yeah, yeah. There's no benefit to not having a contract. I think that it's something that takes a little bit of time to set up, maybe a little bit of a very small ball ache, but once your contract's set up, it's set up. Um, Mine autofills from my CRM, which is very helpful. Um, but yeah, it's just an absolute no-brainer. And I think that more and more people, and I say this completely anecdotally, as opposed to with any evidence at all, I think more and more people are put off by the idea of there being no contract.
Oh yeah, I think that's fair to say, and it does definitely bring a side of professionalism to the business when you say, "Yep, that's all perfect. That's as soon as you signed this and you've paid the deposit, then your booking is confirmed." People kind of have a sigh. I feel like they have a sigh of relief because they know they're dealing with someone who knows what they're doing. Whereas if the opposite happens, where they say, "Great, you're all booked in. If you could bring some fivers in an envelope and give it to me on the day, that'd be wonderful. Then we're all good to go." Uh, you know,
Actual
it
five, please.
just yeah, perfect. So, and I think that disparity is something that people are starting to notice more and more, and people are expecting that, especially with things like GDPR coming into play and that kind of thing. I think people are starting to become a little bit more savvy around legals and people starting to understand how that kind of stuff works a little bit more. So you absolutely need to have a contract in place. And as you said, a contract is not terms and conditions. They're not the same thing. I'm not a legal expert, so we're not going to go into why they're different. We're just going to tell you they are different. And
Yeah.
if you want to find out more about that, we recommend consulting someone, or maybe Googling it if you can understand the law well enough. I mean, I'd probably just ask someone who knows what they're doing, really. But in terms of what should be included in your contract, this is a very hard one to answer, I think, because it very much depends on what your business is and what you do.
Yeah, lots of variables.
But yeah, there are so many variables in there, but you need to be including things that you are comfortable including, really. So if you're there on the day and you're going to be there all day for a photographer, for example, then a meal, I would imagine, is a certainty to go into your contract that says I will be fed a meal whilst you're eating type thing, because you do need to eat at some point, and I don't feel like that's an unreasonable thing to ask of somebody to provide you with a meal. If you are getting married or you're going to a wedding that's further afield, then perhaps overnight accommodation could be provided for by the client. As someone who works a lot further afield in the wedding industry as well as other industries as well, I would honestly say that the majority of the time it's easier if you sort out the accommodation yourself and you just charge them for it, and it just saves a lot of hassle, it saves a lot of work, plus you get to collect all of the points. So if you are doing that a lot, you get to collect your little points that build up to 3 nights, so that's always nice. But that's in my opinion what you'd be doing. I would honestly, as much as you can, sort out your own shit, really. So you sort out your own accommodation. It's people. This comes down to people who charge extra for travel as well. Include it in your price. You shouldn't be saying my price is £400 plus 45p a mile to get there and back, because that is irrelevant to the client. They don't care.
They don't care at all.
No, they
It's
just want a price.
yeah.
So, and people that do that kind of thing just seems completely irrelevant to me. So include everything in your price as much as you can. The things that I include in my contract generally is pretty much just tap water. Like I just want water. I want a room to get changed in and some tap water in that room, iced tap water, and that's it.
Ice tap water.
I
Is
am
is that
so
because you
high
get put in
maintenance.
the disabled toilets? Because that is
Yeah,
technically
pretty. Yeah, I just scoop it straight out and I'm ready to go.
yeah.
Um,
Hey
but
Ricky,
yeah, that's all I. Hi Ricky, nice to see you. Um, that's all I ask for in my contracts, pretty much. There
we're
are
not
like tiny little
talking.
bits and pieces.
We were talking less about contracts and more about the riders, which are included. So yeah, obviously within the riders, if you are a performer or an entertainer or something like that, then you want to be making sure that all your technical specifications are included in that. Things like having a certain amount of power sockets, a certain amount of space, etc., etc. I mean, you will know better than I possibly can what your kind of technical specifications are. But those things all need to be included. From a more contractual side of it, it needs to be made absolutely clear that when once a booking is made with you, that is a commitment of your time, which means that you then cannot take on any further work. So you need to have your cancellation clauses on that, whatever they might be. You need to have details of um, the payment structure of how that's going to work, whether that's all up front, whether there's a deposit and then money coming later on, and what happens if you can't be there, what happens in case of you know medical emergencies and all that kind of stuff. You can find pretty solid contracts online, which you can more or less copy and paste. But I mean, if you're unsure about things, excuse me, then I'd advise just spending a little bit of money and speaking to a contract lawyer
Yeah,
because, yeah, it's the sort of thing is that if you're, like I said on the thread earlier, it's fine just relying on saying, "Oh, these are my terms and conditions." It's fine until it's not, um,
yeah,
and when you need to implement that, and people go, "No, it's not going to stand up at all," and then you end up just losing money. So, for the amount of effort it takes to or a little bit of money to sort out an actual contract. Um, you know, it's just you might as well just do it really. So,
Yeah, for the sake of it, people say, oh, you hear the word lawyer and you go, oh, that sounds expensive. So people don't do it, but it's not going to cost you more than a couple £100, and the amount of money it will save you in the long run, or could potentially save you in the long run, is massive. So I would thoroughly recommend doing it. And if you do have a rider, like I kind of think Jason is kind of on the 2 points there of talking about essentially having a rider of some description. Um, Make sure it's separate. You have it in your contract and you have it separately, because people will skim a contract on the whole because they kind of know what's going to be in there, so they won't really read it. But if you then send them a rider separately, and for those of you who don't know what a rider is, it's essentially a list of specifications for you when you turn up at the venue. So that, as Chris said, a certain number of plug sockets, or you need a certain amount of space, or you want a room, or you need this or that. It's very popular among performers, so among musicians. They will have, this is where the whole like blue M&Ms argument started and came from, is that people sometimes would ask ridiculous things in their riders, like I just want blue M&Ms in a bowl when I arrive. And that's something, I can't remember who it was that did that, but some famous artist did that.
I believe
And
it was Cooper.
there you go. So um,
Might be wrong.
that's the kind. Well, there you go. That's the kind of thing that people will include in their riders. Obviously, we as wedding entertainers don't need to do that. It's usually pretty simple stuff. It is, I need X amount of space, or I need to have wheelchair access, or the equivalent of wheelchair access, so I can bring my thing up into the room, and all of that kind of stuff. So you need to make sure that that is put separately in a separate document so that people receive it, and then also send it to them nearer the time as well. I see that Tom Wishart has commented, we summarise our terms and conditions above them all, as most clients don't read through them all. Who does? So at least they are aware of the important bits. That's a great idea, is to put the important stuff at the top of your terms and conditions, or your contract, so that people know exactly what they're getting themselves into. I mean, really, it's not complicated, because we're not dealing with massive amounts of money, really, and it's not the be all and end all. It's an important day for the bride and groom, but really, it's not. It's not like, Ed Sheeran performing at Wembley Arena kind of terms and conditions and legals and riders and that kind of stuff. Things we have to deal with is pretty simple.
Yeah,
So most people are more than happy to bend to your requirements should you need them.
yeah. I think that's pretty much it. I mean, yeah, like I said, it's not a real biggie, any of it. Although it can seem like it at times, but it's well. So I think just to kind of bring this to a close, this particular part we're talking about now is sort out a contract. It will pay you in the long run. It makes you look more professional. It adds an air of authority. It gives the couple who are booking you peace of mind. Um, so stop being lazy.
Yeah. And it adds that level of professionalism. People really appreciate that being there. So I think it's something that you should definitely be putting into place, especially if you can make it as easy for them as possible with electronic signing, all that kind of stuff. And you can, as Lawrence Turner pointed out, you can put into your contract that the moment you pay the deposit, you are agreeing to these terms and conditions in this contract. You can put that in there so that you're kind of covering yourself there if you don't have the facility for people to sign a contract online and you want to make it as easy for them as possible. So there you go. That's our thoughts on contracts and terms and conditions. Um, there's one other
That's
thing. Oh, sorry.
fascinating last section there.
It is. We are loving it. It's going so well for us. I tell you what. There's one other thing I kind of wanted to talk about very quickly
Hang on a minute.
on the group. Sorry.
Hang on a minute. Have you actually come into this live with a little bit of a plan?
So do you want to know the honest answer to that?
Yes, because
No.
you utterly wing it. You're not just completely winging it.
Well, the thing is, you're the one who usually takes the lead on this, but you told me you were really poorly. So I said I would take the lead on this one. And I think this has been the best podcast so far, in my opinion, if I'm honest. So,
with, with two people watching live.
yeah, but that's because we're recording it on a Tuesday evening. No one's around. Everyone's watching Bake Off.
It is. Everyone is watching Bake Off, like literally the whole country. So
Exactly. So that was
Ricky
my mistake. I
came in
couldn't.
5 minutes. He said he was in
uh,
Poland. I think he was just on the ad break of Bake Off. Um,
Probably exactly that. I mean, it's my fault because you asked me if I could do seven and I couldn't. I could only do from eight. So, and that's when obviously it started. So that's my bad. I take full responsibility for that.
are you watching
Um,
Bake Off in the background?
yeah, I'm actually not got anything on my computer screen except Bake Off. I'm not reading comments or anything like that. I'm just making it up as I go along.
Okay. So what was
The
your next point?
final thing that has really been going on in the last sort of 24, 48 hours or so in the group is a post that Roger put up, Gregson, about bad publicity. He's posted a picture of a A-frame board outside a coffee shop that says, "Come in and try the worst coffee one woman on TripAdvisor had in her life." It's about bad publicity slash bad reviews slash just general bad stuff said about your business.
Yeah,
I think this is a really interesting topic because you can easily turn bad publicity into good publicity because people say that all publicity is good publicity, depending on how you swing it. I think that's very true. What do you think, Chris?
yeah. I mean, we did a whole live on this a while back, and I think that if you get an undeserved bad review, then it can really serve as a call to arms to they just openly share this and say, "Hey, this is what so and so thought about my wedding services. This is my side of the story. Would love it if you could leave me a review because if you've got a 1 star review and it's the only one you've got, and then it brings that, then sharing that then brings maybe 25 star reviews from fellow wedding suppliers or people that it gives them a kick up the bum to leave a review with you or whatever. Then if it's an undeserved review, then more often than not it ends up getting deleted anyway. So with the right response, um, it's yeah, because it's always beneficial. If you get a deserved bad review, which to be honest, I can't say I've seen many of, um, then I think the best thing you can do is respond and say sorry and say what you've learned from the experience and say that you're going to make sure it doesn't happen again, I guess. It's not something I've had experience of myself. Um, so,
Yeah, it is. It's one of those things that's really hard because I've not had a bad. Well, I say that that's not entirely true.
oh,
I did a gig, I did a private party for another magician, and at the time they received great feedback, and I emailed them, and then they said they had a great time and they had great feedback, and they gave me a really nice review, all of that kind of stuff. And then the other magician followed up with them just to say, "Oh, how was Jack?" Like a week or so later, and they came back saying, "Oh, not entirely sure about because there were a couple of things that they said that they weren't entirely happy about." And then, so my response, they were very valid points what they brought up, and it was because essentially they were booking me through another magician, so they weren't ready for what I was doing. They were ready for what the other magician normally does. So what they brought up were very valid points, and so it made me really realize that working for another magician doesn't always work out that well for me
yeah,
because my style is very different to almost every other magician. So I need to be very careful about whose brand I associate with and who I let associate with me because I don't want to do their brand damage as much as I don't want their brand to do my brand any damage. And in fact,
yeah,
there was a event that went up or a gig that went up on a Magic gig sharing page for people who can't do gigs. They put them up, which was, and Chris will agree, was my dream gig.
Yeah.
You know the one I'm talking about, my dream gig. But they wanted something very, very specific that I wasn't able to do. Now, in the past, perhaps I would have gone ahead and gone, I'll work out how to do it, it'll be fine. But having had that experience in the past, I knew that I wasn't the right person for that gig. So I instantly said, as much as I'd love to do this, I don't feel comfortable representing your brand in a way that is, I'm not an expert in.
Yeah.
So that's one bad review I got where I used it as a learning experience to springboard off. Even though they were happy at the time, I could have gone back and been like, yeah, well, they're really happy at the time, and this is you can become a keyboard warrior, but
Yeah.
it's pointless at the end of the day. Really, you're better off just going, right, okay, what can I learn from this experience?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so it happens sometimes, and you need to be accepting of that and be prepared to learn from it, even if you think they're wrong.
Yeah. I think that I had someone message me today about kind of people taking the mick with um, asking for discounts and stuff like that. And I think that I said this to him. He was already on board the idea anyway. But the basic idea is like never respond when you're angry. So if someone says the most rude, cheeky, um, or flat out lies about whatever, do whatever you need to do before responding, and to make sure that when you're responding, that you're responding in a calm, polite, and measured way. Because you know, people are never at their best when they're emotional or angry, and that includes yourself. That's not you, Jack, but anyone listening.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I think you've got to process what someone said, let it settle with you for a while, and then still be as polite as you possibly can be. Even if someone is being the rudest douchebag in the world, it's really important to kind of take a step back, walk out the room, take a long stroll on a beach or whatever, and then come back and respond when you're ready to, even if that's longer than it would normally be, because getting the right response is much more important than a fast response. If you need both, great, and I'm pretty good at that. Um,
it's
but
the
yeah,
Stoic philosophy, isn't it?
well, it's Stoic philosophy. Yeah, that's the Stoic philosophy in a nutshell, um,
Yeah,
which I'm very fond of. So yeah, never respond whilst you're emotional to any bad feedback whatsoever, because you're never going to do any good.
yeah, 100%. And so you just need to make sure you take time for you and you respond in the best way possible. Because if you say something in the heat of an argument and it goes wrong, or you say something that you end up regretting, it could be too late. They could have screenshots of your business, your brand, saying these horrible things back to them. So you want to make sure that you are responding in a timely, measured, and respectful fashion.
Yeah, I mean, show respect, show politeness and kindness, even if you're not receiving it.
Yeah, because people will then empathize with you. Because if this person is unhappy with what you're doing and they end up sharing these screenshots, which I know that people sometimes do, people who then read these screenshots and go through the emails or go through the texts or go through the messages on Facebook, whatever it is, people will see that you were being reasonable and they weren't. So make sure you are being honest and being kind and being genuine, even if you're not receiving it, as you said.
Yeah, don't give them any potential ammo for damaging you later on. Because, like I said, screenshots
Exactly.
are so easy nowadays and so easy to share stuff that yeah, it just doesn't make any sense to do anything else but do it calmly and politely. So,
Yes.
anything else you want to bring up before we bring this to
That
a close?
was
Any
it. I was going to say, is there
friends
anything you want to bring up?
you've been watching? So, please ask if you'd like anything answered. If not, then
But I guess so. Yeah, people. I guess this, as we said today, we unfortunately weren't able to go live yesterday, so we've gone live today. Obviously, it's in the middle of Bake Off, so people are busy watching that. That's the only assumption I can possibly make, which is why we're slightly lower on the numbers than usual. Obviously, all the cake makers are watching Bake Off going, yeah, I should be on there. I should be doing that.
I could have made that pastry
Exactly.
or whatever. No, I do think it is ridiculously popular.
It
But
is, yeah.
I it's like viewer ratings across the UK. It's insane.
Everyone stops and watches it, much like everyone should have done when the cricket was on Saturday, Sunday.
We finish off by talking about how great the cricket was.
Oh yeah, that's a great way to finish this podcast. Did you
So
enjoy the cricket, Chris?
I was a grown man shaking with fear and uh, screaming at the commentary on my phone. Um, yeah, if you don't follow cricket, then the next kind of 5 minutes is going to be fairly meaningless to you. But
You
basically,
can switch off now.
you can switch off now. We're just going to talk about how great the cricket was. Because me and Jack haven't had a chance to talk about this properly. So you might as well be on live about the wedding industry with them, um, podcast. So what can Ben Stokes tell us about? What can Ben Stokes' finest innings of all time tell us about the wedding industry, Jack? Go on, tenuous link it.
That is so tenuous, and this is unplanned, so I'm trying to
I've got,
desperately think on my feet here. You've got one, have you?
I've got an answer.
Okay, go on then. Give us your answer, and I'll tell you if you're right or not.
Okay, so what Ben Stokes' monumental innings can tell us about how you can run a wedding business, this is going to be
Oh,
good.
I think I've got one. Go on, you carry on.
Okay, I always know that when finish saying mine, you're just going to say that's what I was going to say. So um, I think what it can tell you is that you've got to, when you're in business, any business, and this isn't just wedding industry specific, but any business, you've got to react to the circumstances you're in the most sensible manner. You've got to read the situation and adapt to it. That's what Stokesy did. So he's a very aggressive player naturally, but in his first 60 deliveries, he only scored 3 runs, which is like the longest time for anyone to ever get to double digits in terms of score. Or maybe was it just an Englishman or just anyone?
I think of all time. I think.
Of all time. But he ended up winning the match for us and scoring 135 not out because he was patient at the start when he needed to be, and then when it was time to accelerate and it was time to put his foot on the pedal, he was there able to react to the circumstances. And you need to be able to do that within your wedding business. There's times when you need to be, you know, really patient with your advertising and things like that. You need to waiting for the inquiries to come in, and there's times when you got to go right. There's stuff that needs to be done. I'm not getting the bookings in. I need to do this, and this to make this happen. So that is what Ben Stokes' monumental innings can tell us about running a business.
Yeah. Well, mine was going to be patience. So very, very similar in that he got 2 runs in his first 48 balls, and then he got 76, I think it was, in his last 48 balls that he faced. So it shows you that take your time at the start, make sure you've got everything in place and you are in. Take your time, make sure you do it properly, and everything is ready to go, so that when you hit that go button, you can go at kind of light speed and you can really whiz through the wedding industry and avoid a lot of pitfalls.
Yeah, I think essentially what it really we're both really saying is build a solid foundation, even if that takes
Yeah,
a bit. I think that's really really important. He actually made that work.
that was amazing, wasn't it?
As an amazing metaphor. Um, so yeah, I think that brings us to the close of proceedings. Are we going to be live next Monday?
Yeah,
I haven't got anything planned. So unless you hear otherwise, we are back live on Monday, the 2nd of September. That would be back at
yep.
7, I think, because we don't want to clash with Bake again. Um, and if you are interested in learning more about running the business side of your wedding business, head to weddingindustrywisdom.co.uk. There is free stuff. There is a whole full 2-hour free course. There are paid courses on loads of different things within the wedding industry. A new course coming out in about 2 weeks' time ish.
Yeah.
And then a new course every month is the plan. So
Yeah.
yeah, lots of exciting stuff to come. Anything more to add?
No, I don't think so. We will be back next week.
Okay, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you for another video in a week.